What is going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. In today's video, we have a fun one. I'm going to be talking about why Arc 3.0 will be the next 3.0 subclass introduced to Destiny. So recently we had one of the thickest TWABs in memory, and it detailed all kinds of weapon changes that are coming to the game. There was lots of hype for this TWAB leading into Thursday, so I figured it may be a logical time to let us know which subclass would be dropping next. We're only about a month away from the next season, so I thought the timing seemed right. And while the TWAB was absolutely incredible, and I am very much looking forward to the upcoming sandbox changes, I was slightly disappointed there was no 3.0 subclass reveal. So in this video, I'm going to be detailing why I think Arc 3.0 will be the next subclass. Trust me, I have some pretty good reasoning here. I have been speculating all season because I absolutely love Void 3.0 and I can't wait to see what is in store next. As well, when Bungie does finally announce what the next subclass is, I will be doing preview videos to show you what exotic armor pieces and weapons you want to have ready for the new changes. Because if weapons get things similar to volatile rounds for Void, think like Burn for Solar or Chain for Arc, then you are definitely going to want to have some good energy weapons. I also think some underused exotics will come roaring back into the limelight, and I am all here for it. Anyways, enough yammering, let's get to my reasoning. So first of all, let's look at subclasses. If we start on my main character of Warlock and look at the solar trees, we can see all three are actually pretty viable in their current state. No, they are not as good as Void 3.0, but top tree Dawnblade is still a menace in PvP, middle tree is still a staple in high-end content to this day, and bottom tree was used by Esoteric to solo platinum the corrupted Grandmaster. And it was a meta strat for beating the Hollowed Lair GM. Conversely, if we look at Arc Warlock, the only one that really got used in high-end content was Middle Tree, and since the Geomags nerf, I haven't really seen anyone running a Stormcaller subclass. I ran Stormcaller with Stormdancer's Brace day one of the raid for the high super uptime, but my clanmate Baker ran Bottom Tree Dawnblade, and he was slaying out just as well as me. I just have a soft spot for Stormdancers and wanted an excuse to run it in high-end PvE. So overall, Solar 2.0 is definitely stronger than Arc 2.0 on the Warlock. Next, we'll look at the Titan. Here, we have a bit more parity. Middle Tree Hammer on Titan got nerfed so it is less viable in endgame now, which is probably good because if you saw Salta Greppo solo the Lake of Shadows Grandmaster with it, it was clearly a little overpowered. Top Tree Solar does not get much play, but Melting Point is still really strong. It just gets greatly overshadowed by Divinity now. But up until Void 3.0, Bottom Tree Sunbreaker is what I mained, and in my opinion, it is still really strong with the sunspots. You can have high ability uptime and be chaining sunspots constantly if you know what you are doing. Conversely, if we look at Striker Titan, when is the last time you saw someone run top or bottom tree in high-end content? Basically never. Top tree Striker hasn't been good since the double pulse grenade meta for the dogs and Leviathan. But middle tree with Curse of the Falling Star is still a great option for high-end content, but that is tied mostly to the super to be honest, and you need an exotic. So we could maybe call Titans a draw. However, if you take Curus out of the equation, I would argue Bottom Tree Solar is a stronger subclass than Middle Tree Arc. And that brings us to Hunter, with the worst of the three subclasses on Arc. I have not seen anyone run Arc Staff in high-end content in PvE in a very long time. It is simply too melee focused to be viable in endgame. However, its solar classes are not much better. That being said, Bottom Tree is a decent option, especially with Celestial Nighthawk. So we'll give the edge to Solar on Hunter. So let's break it down now. Warlock has three very good solar subclasses, two for PvE and one for PvP, where its Arc counterparts are definitely lacking. So Solar wins for Warlock for sure. On Titan, Bottom Tree Sunbreaker and Middle Tree Striker are basically tied, so we'll call it a wash. And finally, on Hunter, Bottom Tree Solar is better for PvE and PvP than any Arc subclass in my opinion. So the advantage goes to Solar for Hunter, even though two of the Solar subclasses are sorely lacking. Looking at you, Blade Barrage. So if we're looking at necessity, currently I would say Arc definitely needs an upgrade more than Solar. And I think most of the community would agree with that, especially PvE wise. Aside from Curious Titans, you just don't see Arc characters in high-end PvE. If Solar gets the next 3.0 rework, then you literally won't see any Arc Warlocks or Hunters in any aspect of the game. And I am sure Bungie knows this. Whereas if Arc gets the rework, I think you will still see Top Tree Dawns and Gunslinger Hunters in PvP, not to mention Lorely abusing Titans, and in PvE, Well of Radiance will definitely still be kicking around. So now that we have the subclasses themselves looked at, let's look at some subtle hints Bungie has given us. They tend to telegraph changes a season ahead. I will use the pass as an example. Adored was the ritual weapon for Season of the Hunt. We then got Anti-Barrier Sniper the next season. Season of the Chosen had Salvager's Salvo, the next season we had Breach and Clear and Unstoppable GL. Then Null Composure, and we got Particle Deconstruction. The trend, however, stopped with Ascendancy. However, this season we have a Kinetic Shotgun for the ritual. But maybe Bungie is throwing us a curveball. If we look to the Season Pass, we have an Arc Exotic Machine Gun in the Grand Overture. I thought this season we may get something like a Machine Gun Champion mod, and luckily we didn't. But in the most recent TWAB, they talked about buffing machine guns big time, so I could see it being in the artifact next season, as well as maybe a Trace Rifle artifact mod, because a lot of those got buffed as well. Speaking of the TWAB and the buff to Trace Rifles, let's look at another very interesting bullet point that points to Arc 3.0. The Cold Heart Exotic Trace Rifle now creates an Ionic Trace. This will give an Ionic Trace to any class now. Currently, they are only available on Middle Tree Stormcaller, and let me tell you, they are actually awesome for spamming abilities. So the fact we have an exotic trace rifle that can create them tells me they are ready for this gun to mesh with Arc 3.0. But this is just really recent evidence I have seen pointing to Arc 3.0. Let's rewind to a couple other instances that I have been noticing. So instead of evidence from TWABs, let's turn to Twitter. Kevin Yanis, the abilities lead at Bungie, tweeted this out way back in February. He talked about the Synaptic Spear movement ability being almost like an early playtest for movement tech that we will see with Arc 3.0. So that is another indicator. Now, before we get to my next indication, I know the TWAB also had points about things like Skyburner's Oath adding a burn effect to enemies. I know there are also some potential signs for Solar 3.0, but I just feel like there are more signs pointing to Arc 3.0 and more concrete signs. As I said earlier, an Arc Machine Gun Season Pass weapon is one of those big signs. And speaking of weapons, let's talk about other weapons that have dropped this season. Sure, we have gotten some great solar weapons that could do well in Solar 3.0, but some of the arc weapons are really strong, and I don't think that's a coincidence. First, let's quickly look at the solar weapons that have been added this season. Hopefully I didn't miss any. We have the Ogma Pulse Rifle, which is a world drop, Explosive Personality, which is a seasonal drop, Redback Sidearm, which is a world drop, Lubre's Ruin, which is a raid drop, and the Frontier's Cry hand cannon from Iron Banner. None of these weapons are amazing, but they're decent. And then for heavies, we have the Exotic Parasite, which is amazing, and Cataclysmic, which is also amazing. So we have 5 solar energies and 2 solar heavies. Now, if we look at the arc weapons, we have 2 that stand out as being top tier and only primed to get better with Arc 3.0, and those are the raid weapons for Barents, the breech-loaded grenade launcher, and Insidious, the raid pulse rifle. We also have a Season Pass weapon in the Sweet Sorrow Auto Rifle, a World Drop hand cannon, the Cantata, the Crucible hand cannon Crisis Inverted, and the Wellspring weapon Come to Pass Auto Rifle. Then, if we look at glaives, we have a Solar Glaive and a Void Glaive. So I would bet next season we get a Legendary Arc Glaive to go with Arc 3.0. It would only make sense. Then, if we look at heavy weapons, we have Grand Overture as mentioned, and the Tarnation Arc Grenade Launcher. I'm actually surprised heavy GLs didn't get a buff in the recent TWAB, maybe for Season 18 I guess. Anyways, back to the weapons, we have 6 arc energies and 2 heavies, so only 1 more arc weapon this season than solar. However, 2 of them came from the Wellspring, whereas no solar weapons came from there, so there are only 3 craftable solar weapons, but there are 5 craftable arc weapons. Therefore, I think we see a few craftable solar weapons next season in preparation for Solar 3.0. The strength of this season's arc weapons is what initially pushed me towards suspecting Arc 3.0, and then I started looking for other signs in developing this video. Now, if you have watched this far, then I thank you so much for doing that. It honestly means a lot. And to repay you, I will show you the most obvious example of all. If you are a longtime Destiny player, then you will remember the modifier Prism. This modifier rotated the burn in an activity every 30 seconds. It was in OG Nightfalls, Prestige Raids, and even the mission to unlock the Legend of Acreus. In fact, the background gameplay is from a recent video from Choblo91 completing that exact mission. Check out Choblo if you haven't, his content is amazing. The guy is the esoteric of console, but he actually explains everything he is doing to solo grandmasters, and understands enemy spawns and game mechanics as well as anyone out there. He is also super easy to listen to, and breaks it down at a level anyone can understand. Also, judging by his sub count, he is super underrated, as he should easily have over 100k subscribers. Seriously, he's an excellent creator, go sub to him when you're done this video. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Prism rotates burns, and that rotation is Void, then Arc, then Solar. Well, we have Void 3.0, next would be Arc, and then Solar. Does that sound familiar? Well, it should. If we look at the exotic Dead Messenger, it has the perk The Fundamentals, same with Borealis and Hardlight. And that perk states, change this weapon's damage type, cycling between Solar, Arc, and Void. It is not written in order. Every single one of these weapons is Void at base, and when you hit reload to change it, they all go to Arc next, and then finally Solar. Am I just a crazy conspiracy theorist here looking for any clue to support my hypothesis? Perhaps. But Bungie loves to give clues in their game. They love to foreshadow and even sometimes hide things in plain sight, and I think this is one of those scenarios. If I am wrong, then I will be truly disappointed that Bungie went against conventional wisdom and their own subtle hints in the game. But I like to think I am right. Anyways, that concludes my reasoning for why Arc 3.0 will be the next 3.0 subclass. I really do hope I am right because I have a ton of build ideas for Arc 3.0. I do for Solar as well, but I think Arc 3.0 needs to help more, and we'll get a lot more mileage out of Arc subclasses after they are updated. One other thing is another small indicator could be Blight Ranger Helm for the Hunter being released this season, but then you could also argue Lordly Splendor for Titan, so take that for what it's worth. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for listening to my crazy thoughts. Let me know down below what you think the next 3.0 subclass will be. Do you agree with my reasoning, or are you on the side of Paul Tassi who is convinced it is Solar? And if so, how come? Leave your reasons in the comments. Anyways, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.